It's about to get really, really cold. A live edition of the Carolina Weather Group starts right now. It is Wednesday, December 21st, 2022. I'm James Brierton in Charlotte, a special live edition featuring Jared Smith in Charleston, Frank Strait in Columbia, Scotty Powell in Myrtle Beach, and joining us from WHNS, we have Chrissy Kohler, and from Charlotte, we have KJ Jacobs. We're going to be talking about a coastal low that is going to be moving through the area tomorrow, bringing periods of rain, maybe some thunder, and then what we are calling lovingly wickedly cold temperatures. We are talking about cold air that is, if not record breaking this weekend in some places, it's going to feel like it. It's going to give those records a run for their money. Let's start from west to east in upstate South Carolina and portions of western North Carolina. Chrissy, what are things looking like? Walk us through what your region can expect. And then our listeners and our viewers in other areas of the Carolinas, stay tuned. We're going to go round robin here. So, Chrissy, you're up first.
Yeah, James, I don't know about lovingly when we're talking about these temperatures, because I think most of us Southerners are sitting here going, "Oh, we're not ready. We're not ready." But yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of days in the upstate and western North Carolina, because we've got kind of a little two-pronged event here that really starts up tonight, where we've got the potential for some freezing rain mixing in into sort of the Blue Ridge Escarpment area there. So like central parts of the North Carolina mountains, we're talking about around Asheville, into Transylvania County, Buncombe County, Haywood counties, even Yancey and Mitchell counties in the mountains of Mitchell and Rutherford counties is where we have the potential to really start to see some freezing rain mixing in through those overnight hours tonight and into the early hours of tomorrow. So winter weather advisory is posted overnight tonight because of the potential for some icy roadways. And it's an issue for the morning commute, but it's also an issue for some people that may be getting a jump start on the holiday travel tomorrow, because that does include parts of I-26 as well as I-40 in North Carolina. Not all of those interstates, but certainly portions of that. So it's definitely one of those things that if you can hold off on hitting the roadways until about mid-morning, I think you'll be a little better off when that potential for icy roadways kind of drops off. So that's tonight. And then we get a little bit of a lull tomorrow. And then things pick back up Thursday night into Friday morning, where the big question, I think, does that cold air come in fast enough to switch things over into a snow event in the mountains? Was looking this morning with those early morning model runs that, hey, this may be a mainly snow event into the mountains for Thursday night into Friday morning. At this point, still looks like fairly minimal snow accumulations, but we could be talking about half an inch of snow accumulations through portions of the mountains, Asheville, Hendersonville, out towards Bryson City. Of course, the higher in the elevation you go, closer to the North Carolina-Tennessee border, the potential is there that we could see maybe even up to around an inch of snow. And some of the models this morning showing some of that actually dropping down into like Oconee County, northern parts of Pickens County in the upstate. So not completely out of the question. We could get a little bit of a light dusting into portions of the upstate. Most of the upstate, though, is one of those things where you walk outside and you just see a few of those flakes flying, not likely to necessarily see much in the way of accumulation. And then, as you guys were just talking about, the cold. Oh boy, the cold. We were looking at some of those models this morning where we're likely on Friday going to see that setup where the midnight temperature ends up being our high temperature for the day on Friday. Just doesn't look likely that we're going to warm up once we get even into those daylight hours. So, based off of what I was looking at this morning, it could be 19 in Asheville at 6 a.m. and 33 in Greenville at 6 a.m. And then from there, it just continues to fall through the rest of the day. So 19 when you wake up in Asheville, and then it's just not going to get any warmer than that. Just feels ugh. And then Saturday morning's the big time frame that we're looking at, the most dangerous of the cold coming in, where temperatures are going to be down in the single digits on the North Carolina side for us, and then down into the 20s or the teens, excuse me, up into the upstate, and then you factor in the wind, and that makes it feel even more brutal. So I do think that it's likely we're going to see those wind chill advisories issued for Saturday morning. Certainly, possibility they add on for Sunday morning as well, but it certainly looks like Saturday morning is going to be the most brutal of the cold weather for us in the upstate and western North Carolina with all that. So, guys, yeah, we're not. I don't think we're really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I guess when I say lovingly, I mean sarcastically, because this is not going to be fun for anyone. And I just popped up the Mediagram generator because I think helps at least me visually when I'm trying to see those ups and downs like a roller coaster. I mean, there's consistency in what a
Yeah.
lot of the models are showing, but you can see just how far we're dropping down after that cold front comes through. This is
Woo.
for GSP in Greer, and you can just, I mean, it's a repeat story across the Carolinas, as we'll show across the board, right? But it's just like
Yeah.
you're going to wake up on Friday, maybe still have one more day of work, as some of us do. But when you go
Yeah.
to leave there, it is going to be brutal.
Yeah, it's going to be worse in the afternoon when you step outside than it was in the morning. I'm a runner, and I was actually joking with one of my colleagues that maybe I should just get up at midnight and go for a run because that's going to be the nicest part of the day.
It's very true. And let me ask you this, and I'll unmute Scotty, who up until recently lived in the foothills of North Carolina. You know, from where I sit in Charlotte, the idea of winter weather in the western North Carolina mountains is obviously not a foreign idea. And
Mm,
to a certain degree, they're used to it. But I mean,
yeah.
even these temperatures, correct me if I'm wrong, are excessive or abnormal for them. Is that right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, Scotty, you want to talk about this since you have actually lived there. I live on the South Carolina side of things where we're a little bit warmer.
Yeah, the last time that I can remember temperatures being this cold, Jared, you'll have to remind me of the year that you guys had snow there in Charleston. I think it was 2018, 2017, somewhere
18, yeah, the beginning
18.
of 18.
We had, and it was
This
about
year,
this.
actually.
Yeah, it was about this same time of the year that we had that big surge of Arctic air move in, where there were several days at or just below freezing. But it honestly, it is kind of a rarity, even for our foothill, and even for, I would even say, for the mountain locations. We just don't get that cold. You may get a few days where it's 18, 19 degrees, but you don't get the wind chills that are going to be in the negatives like that for a long amount of time. So it definitely is a kind of a shock to the system, and where it's been a relatively warm fall into winter. I know here recently it's kind of been cloudy and gloomy up there, but it's going to be a big shock as this is the first surge of cold Arctic air, and it's a big surge. So I would say you're right, James. It's very rare. It's not very common that we get temperatures like this.
I want to show people here the impact of this across the country. A look at this hour on Wednesday night at the current active bulletins from the National Weather Service across the country. Most states in some sort of form of winter weather advisory or wind chill advisory. I think that burnt orange is blizzard warnings up for
Mm,
portions of the Midwest. I mean, so when we show you that future cast and we show you those temperatures surging into the Carolinas, they have to pass so much of the country even before they get here. And so this is going to be a big national story as we head into this weekend and come into that holiday weekend for so many folks who are so going to be celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, obviously a very festive time of year, a lot of holiday travel going on as
mhm.
well. I know my own parents traveling back from Charlotte to New York ahead of this, knowing that they were going to be driving. And we did that one year driving. I remember getting out of the car in Virginia at a rest stop and just instantly freezing.
Um,
Oh, so
Jared,
cold.
I think it was you who posted in our internal chat. There was a tweet that was issued today. I think it was from Wyoming or something. When the front came in, it went from like 43 degrees to I think like 7 degrees in like a 30-minute span. I mean, it was just insane.
Yeah, Bob Henson tweeted out, Cheyenne, Wyoming just dropped from 43 degrees to 11 degrees Fahrenheit in 9 minutes. After 21 more minutes, they're down to 3. So there's
No,
your
thank you.
mediogram there.
Ouch.
There's your falling off the cliff. The only thing that's going up there is the relative humidity because the temperatures in the dew points are actually getting closer. But other than that, yeah. I mean,
It's
I'm glad it's
dramatic.
not going to be that abrupt here because I
Yeah.
mean, there's going to be a lot of places dealing with flash freeze issues.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Something similar happened in Denver too. It was
Mhm.
42 at 3:53, and then 7 minutes later at 4 p.m. it was 18.
Oof. That's brutal. It's brutal.
All right. Well, that is not encouraging, I suppose. We will talk more about these cold temperatures and even make our way to the east, where some portions, especially eastern North Carolina, might see a rumble of thunder associated with this coastal system tomorrow. But let me bring in KJ Jacobs at WCNC in Charlotte. KJ, do you have any good news for me? Like, is it going to be any warmer here, comparatively speaking?
Well, James, I hate to say it, but the short answer is no. Unfortunately, it is not going to be warmer here. I mean, it is the first day of winter, so I'm just going to fit somewhere in the middle for those of you who like the cold weather, and then those of you who aren't a fan of the cold weather. Well, I think we're just going to have to put up with it for a little bit, at least through the weekend. So we'll start with this particular graphic here. I know a lot of folks wanted to see a white Christmas here in the Charlotte area. Not going to happen for us. However, there is that chance for some mixing to occur. You can see it there shaded in the pink. That does include the mountain area, some of the higher elevations. So that's that potential for tonight. By and large, most of us are going to be above freezing. It's just going to be a cold, yucky rain overnight into the first part of our day tomorrow. But in terms of the mix overnight in the mountains, because temperatures will be freezing at the surface, we could have a glaze and we could have some messy conditions early on. Um, and part of that is because of we that temperature profile at the surface with temperatures at 32. So we could have some icing out there. Not a lot, but it's something to be mindful of. Um, Guys, I'll take you through the current temperatures now for at least the area. 38 in Charlotte now, and it's drizzling out there. It's one of those type of nights that is not heavy rain, but it's cold, and you have just a light shower, so it just makes it that much more miserable. 32 now in the mountains, in Boone, for instance, at 32 Jefferson as well. But this is radar. So right now at 9:24 Wednesday night. See, the rain isn't heavy, but if you couple that with the cold air in place, it's not a pleasant night to be out. Yeah, it's definitely hard to stay dry. But we talked about the coastal system. This is the rain that's coming from it, coming towards us now for tonight. It'll fill in overnight and becoming more widespread for tomorrow morning. Also, too, it could be heavy at times. In terms of any thunder, I do think that's just going to be about a rumble for us, if anything. By and large, I think the biggest situation is going to be what we get in the mountains in terms of wintry precipitation. So we'll keep an eye out for that. James, you mentioned the map across the country. So this is another look at that. You know, someone asked me today on the newscast, I think it was Vanessa on the show, talked about how will the storm impact travel. Well, it doesn't have to be our airport. You know, people traveling all over the country, and if they have delays, say Chicago or anywhere else, where they have the winter storm warnings, then that can certainly have an effect on travel locally and then other parts of the country, and then that's a ripple effect. But here at home, we just have a winter weather advisory in effect for our mountain areas for tonight through tomorrow afternoon until 1 p.m. So that's our small, excuse me, window for any winter precipitation. In terms of snowfall with it, not a lot. But we will have this system coming through overnight, pushing out. That's the low pressure system you see there. Then a cold front comes in. This is part two that we'll see moving in for Friday morning. And this one is a two-part because it doesn't have a lot of rain with it, but it will give another brief window for snow in the mountains. But once it clears out, this is going to drop those temperatures. This is that Arctic front we've been talking about for several days now. Well, it's finally going to come in, but the temperatures are going to hang around throughout the holiday weekend. So we have a breakdown of the temperatures, guys, as we have it here. So right now we have 7 a.m. on Friday morning in terms of the wind chills. That's your exposed skin to the cold air. 23 is that feels like temperature in Charlotte. Minus 14 in Boone. I felt minus 14 before. I think it was minus 15. I started my career in West Virginia, and I was out reporting in negative wind chills, and it just felt like my skin was like peeling off my face. Um, you can barely look in the direction of the wind. That's just how powerful it is. So I encourage anyone out in these conditions to not spend a lot of time in the cold air, and also b make sure you have those layers on. Make sure you bundle up, and just so you can kind of limit your exposure to the cold and stay safe. In terms of Friday afternoon, we talked about the temperatures being the warmest the first part of the day, and then by the afternoon, it's going to get much colder. That's going to be the case too for the Charlotte area. By 4 p.m. Friday, will dry out, but it's going to be minus 18 as a wind chill. Temperatures, wind chills in Charlotte at 10 degrees, 14 in Monroe, surrounding areas. East of us, it's going to feel more like 21 degrees. So the story continues. Single digit wind chills by Saturday morning. We're at 0 degrees as a wind chill. So yeah, that's very cold. It can go either side of there. Earlier today, we were 1 above 0. But the latest update shows that we'll be right at 0 for wind chill, minus 27 for Boone. So it just shows you that the data now is trending colder as we head closer towards the holiday weekend. So we'll see if that trend continues. The Christmas forecast, the Christmas Eve afternoon, this is not the low temperature. 32 is that temperature for Christmas Eve afternoon. The night before Christmas, I think all of us want to sort of cozy up and have some hot chocolate and be with family, perhaps watch the Polar Express or something. This is that night to do it. It's going to be as cold as 16 degrees, not the wind chill, but the actual air temperature for Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Day afternoon, the high is going to be 37 degrees. So that's just about 5 degrees above the freezing mark. And one last image to show you guys. If you think this Christmas is one of the coldest, then you're right. The coldest Christmases on record, 1983, we had a high of 22 degrees and a low of 4 degrees. Yeah, I think even this year, like previous years, 1969, a high of 34, for instance, and a low of 31. 31 doesn't seem so bad considering what we're up against this coming weekend. So I just say anybody who got plans, Christmas plans, like so many of you, do something inside. Get creative with the kids, and hopefully Santa will bring them something fun to play indoors.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about in a little bit, KJ, some, I would say, safety measures too for when you're indoors, because as we bring the rest of the panel back on in, heating is going to be something that is crucial over the course of the next few days, but also potentially dangerous. And so we'll have some good safety tips for that coming up. KJ, do you have a favorite indoor activity that keeps you warm? Is it hot chocolate? That's what I like.
What was that? Hot chocolate?
Hot chocolate, maybe with a little Bailey's or something.
Yeah, I mean, baking cookies.
Ooh, yeah.
There's a little science in that. There's some chemistry into getting creative and baking some Christmas cookies, watching some movies. Just doing something. We'll find a science experiment or something. Perhaps we can post and they can do it at home.
Yes, that would be good. KJ, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but I'm going to ask you to recite a little bit of the Weather IQ package that I know you did for WCNC probably a week or so ago, but you went into the science of how the cold air makes your nose run. which I think is something that people are already experiencing, whether they're sick or not. And with these cold temperatures ahead, can you in 30 seconds give us the Reader's Digest version of why our bodies make our nose run when we encounter cold temperatures?
Yeah, so basically, if you inhale the cold air, your nose essentially acts as a humidifier. So it basically is going to warm the air and also make it, I guess, make it moist. Therefore, dry cold air is only going to irritate the skin, so your nose is going to sort of respond, just so it can filter it before the air reaches your lungs.
I think a lot of
So
people
as
would
a
be,
result, it does produce excess mucus, and therefore you have a nose run.
yeah. I think if I owned a tissue company right now, I'd be making lots of money. We are at the bottom of the hour now. We will be taking a look at some other regions here across the Carolinas, as well as an in-depth look at some of those severe weather threats. KJ, thank you for coming on. I know we've featured you before here on the Carolina Weather Group, but I think this is the first time we had you on live with us in real time, so we appreciate it.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, KJ. Jacobs from WCNC, Chrissy Kohler before him from WHNS, holding down Greenville, Spartanburg, Asheville in that large television market. As always, you guys are welcome to stick around, or if you got to run, we understand that as well too. We want to show you some of the other regions that will be impacted. First, let's talk about some of the cold air that will be coming into the Greensboro area, and you can see here, again, giving you an outline of when this transition period is going to happen. As you look at Friday, and Chrissy mentioned this, some of the highest temperatures for so many of us on Friday will come in the morning hours. So it'll be a high temperature in Greensboro on Friday of 43 degrees, but it's happening at 4 o'clock in the morning. So when you see that high temperature, don't think afternoon, because by the time we get to the afternoon, we're slipping and sliding down into the teens as we go on through those overnight periods into the wicked hours and into Saturday morning. Another thing we haven't touched on yet, and you can see it here in this blue line if you're watching with us tonight on Facebook and YouTube. If not, if you're on the audio, I'll walk you through it. But as the temperatures go down, the winds come up as a part of that gradient, as a part of that transition period. So sustained winds, 25 miles an hour expected in Greensboro on Friday, gusting up to 45 or 50 miles an hour. That's like tropical storm force wind gusts in Greensboro. It's a similar story as we make our way here into the Raleigh area, right? Maybe just move everything out like an hour or two as the system will be pushing in from west to east. But you can see we'll be in the mid 40s in those early morning hours, slipping down to near 20 into the upper teens by Saturday morning. Same thing with the winds, gusting up to 45, sustained at 25 miles an hour. And you can also see, if you're looking at this purple line, it shows us the wind direction. And as that cold front comes through, you can see it shifting directions. Similar story in Wilmington. Don't want to leave you out tonight, but you can see you're going to start the day off maybe above 50 there along the North Carolina coast, dropping down to near 20. Gusty winds as well for you. Matter of fact, just so I have this at the same time period as what we were looking at a moment ago, let me just back this up a little bit because I was realizing visually it was off a little bit. Almost 60 degrees in Wilmington on Friday morning, in those upper 50s. Gusty winds will be coming on through, and the red line, if you're watching with us tonight, those are the air temperature, but the actual real feel, the wind chill, is that blue line. 10 degrees in Wilmington, guys. I mean, those are just incredible numbers that are going to be pushing on through. We're also going to be watching for that severe weather threat that will move through portions of the area associated with a coastal low on Thursday. If you're live with us, it's tomorrow. If you're listening to the audio podcast while driving to work on Thursday morning, then congrats. It's today. It's happening now. Let's bring in Scotty Powell. He's holding down the fort for us in Myrtle Beach, where things were supposed to be warm compared to his old home in Morganton, but nope, you're going to get it just like everybody else, and you're going to like it, Scotty. Tell us about this coastal low starting on Thursday before we get to those cold temperatures.
Yeah, we have a roller coaster going here, and Jared will experience the same thing. So tonight, basically, we have already reached our low temperature. Our temperatures are actually going to be rising throughout the night. So right now it is 45 degrees. So by the time everyone wakes up tomorrow morning, 7, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, whatever time that may be, we're going to be into the 50s, maybe even near 60 degrees. And that's going to kick off some heavy rain, possible rumble of thunder, but I think the severe weather threat is going to be further north into eastern North Carolina. But it still can't rule that out. As you can see, here's the future cast. There's still a few cells right off the coast that will need to be monitored here in the Grand Strand. But after that, we could actually see some breaks in the cloud tomorrow afternoon. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a few breaks in the clouds that we could see temperatures maybe touch 70. We're going to have a southwest wind blowing in. So that's kind of like a blowtorch wind ahead of the cold front. And then the cold front moves through early Friday morning. Temperatures at 6 a.m. I was trying to remember off the top of my head. I think at 6 a.m. I was looking at the models right before I left tonight. 6 a.m. I think it was like 58 to 60 degrees. By 10 a.m., the temperatures were like in the low 40s, upper 30s. And then by 5 p.m., temperatures were below freezing. And so that's just how quickly this is moving in. James, you brought up a good point. Not only are we going to see cold air, but one thing that I don't think is being talked about as much as the cold air is the wind factor. Some of the models are showing wind gusts of 40 to 50 miles per hour, especially here along the coast. And, not to compare it to a tropical storm, but those are tropical storm force winds that can, blow some trees down and can cause some damage. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see some power outages throughout the area, especially with some heavy rainfall that we've had last night, today, and then tonight into tomorrow. So some saturated soils with 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts could definitely do that. So it's kind of a caveat of the cold air, but also the wind. And then I know I emailed you some pictures, James. So maybe before.
Oh man, I'm on the spot.
Yeah, maybe
what's your name again?
Yeah, who is that? But it's kind of a temperature wind chill comparison for Christmas Eve morning and Christmas Day. Christmas Eve for Lumberton, Laurinburg, Florence is like 8 to 9 degrees. That's the wind chill. Actual temperatures in the upper teens. Myrtle Beach wind chills 12, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Here they come. I found them.
Okay, good. Yeah, there they are.
Emailing me now from your work email. Who are
yes,
you?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So here's what I posted today. This is your Christmas forecast. Christmas Day, a little bit warmer than Christmas Eve. Maybe if we can go back one to Christmas Eve. There we go. There you can see Saturday morning. Our temperatures are going to be, wind chills are going to be in the single digits for places like Florence, Lumberton, Laurinburg, and actual high temperatures barely make it to freezing. So, we could go over 24-hour period of time of having temperatures below freezing, which could cause some disruptions in your house, like plumbing and things like that, where we could see some pipes burst, some of your water spigots or water hoses break because there's still water left in them because everything just freezes so quickly. So,
I gotta say one thing on that real fast. So the company that owns WCNC, Tegna, has a national verify team, and they did a story this week about, yes, letting your faucet drip will help prevent your pipes from bursting. And it actually taught me something, because as a stubborn Yankee, I always insisted that was a Southern myth. Growing up in New York, I never, ever left the faucet on. I don't know if I was just ignorant. I don't know if it's a construction materials difference. But apparently, if you actually ask the sources, as this story does and transparently outlines, yes, it does, in fact, help prevent your pipes from bursting if they are moving that water through. So
yeah, and one thing we've been stressing here, also opening your cabinets, because that allows the warmer air to come in and keep those pipes just a little bit warmer. Any little bit of heat helps, especially if you're not going to be at home. If you're traveling for the holidays, you don't want to come back home and your kitchen's flooded and all of that mess. Yeah. That's something you don't want to deal with. So yeah, we got big time cold weather coming in, and the wind aspect as well. That's concerning. And Jared, you probably are up to this because I think it was issued after I left work. I believe there's a coastal flood advisory also that's been issued because of the wind tonight and high tide and all of that. So there's a lot going on here.
Well, we'll keep it moving. Let's go on down to Charleston, Jared. What's the situation there?
I mean, Scotty, I think that was a beautiful segue. This is not getting a lot of play. The cold is getting the headlines, and and rightfully so. But I mean, the coastal flood threat is fairly significant in the Charleston metro tomorrow. I mean, we could see moderate to potentially major flooding. We've had northeast winds for a couple days that piles up the water very efficiently with the wedge that's been in place. And 6:30-ish high tide around then. Probably will peak a little bit later, because typically when we get into these coastal flood events, they peak a little bit later than the predicted tide. But could see 7.7, 7.9 feet, somewhere in there, maybe to 8 feet. That would be our 70th coastal flood event of the year. Very likely going to happen tomorrow morning. Second to the 89 that we had in 2019. So I suppose, yay, it's not that bad, but it's still pretty bad. But the big concern that I have, for the Charleston area tomorrow morning is that we're going to have that low coming up the coast, and we're going to have, pretty good moisture transport on top of that. And we could have a few thunderstorms of our own to deal with. Let me put myself in the corner here next to the model. And the arm is going to kind of get in the way there a little bit. Usually when I'm in this mode, I've got the lav in, but hey, so it goes. But you can see this is the high res rapid refresh for tomorrow morning. And this is right at, 10Z. That's 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. We have a few heavy downpours coming through. And again, it's not going to necessarily be a situation where we have this huge widespread rain, certainly not like we have in the summers, but the atmosphere is ready. It's going to be pretty well juiced. 1.2, 1.3 precipitable water. So that's how much water you would wring out if the atmospheric column was like a sponge or a towel, and you were wringing it out. You'd get 1.3 inches of water there. And so we could see a quick half inch of rain, and that on top of a 7.9 foot tide, that causes issues. So that's certainly something that we're going to be watching very closely for tomorrow. And again, I think that severe weather threat that we've been kind of teasing a little bit for eastern North Carolina, I think it stays up there. I don't think that we get into that, but we could still hear some rumbles of thunder here too. Some pretty decent elevated instability showing up on the models. So that's going to be certainly something that we're going to watch very closely here. And then we're going to get the same cold. We're going to get cold all the way to the coast, guys. We're going to get it, we're going to get it well into the shelf waters out here. And and usually when we have these kinds of cold outbreaks, it's not real. We usually say inland from the immediate coast. Usually the immediate coast, you're going to get away with it. Might get a little frosty, but you're going to generally get away with it. This time, not so much. We're going to see those 20s, just plunge all the way in, all the way to the coast during the day, Friday and into Saturday night. Or Friday night rather, into Saturday morning. And something that's interesting here is that when you get this kind of freezing weather to the coast, you have a lot of houses on stilts. And so the piping,
it's like the bridges, right?
Like the bridges. So I'm urging folks who live on the coast, protect your homes tonight, tomorrow. I mean, especially if you're leaving. That's going to be a challenge. Keep keep a faucet going. It's not a Southern myth. It's science.
Well, speaking of the science, let me explain the bridge thing, because we referenced it, but we didn't really explain it. Right? It's because bridges, as you'll see on the road signs, ice before roadways. And it's because in addition to having the cold air from the top, they're also getting the cold air from the bottom, and that's an extra source of cold air. So it accelerates the freezing of water that might happen on the roadway, on the bridge, or in this case, houses on stilts. I've learned another thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that actually, it was kind of, and I'll credit, I'll credit one of my Instagram followers on that one. She was like, "Oh my goodness, all the houses that are up," and it's like, "Yeah, you're right. That's not something that we have to think about very often." So certainly something that we're going to all need to pay attention to. Bring in your pets. If you don't, I'm going to come to your house and sing Sarah McLachlan, and you're not going to like it. That's just not, that's no good. You got to bring in your pets. You got to bring in the sensitive plants. Check on your elderly neighbors. Make sure that you've got a warm place to go. There have been warming shelters. I retweeted it earlier on at CHSWX Charleston Weather. We'll send it out too on Carolina Weather Group. But there's going to be 4 warming shelters opened throughout the holiday weekend. They're going to be there in case you or somebody needs somewhere to go. So we want to make sure that folks are prepared for this. We haven't seen cold like this in a couple of years. In fact, Christmas Eve, I think something remarkable too. Christmas Eve on Saturday, the Weather Service forecast high for the airport is 35. The record low maximum for Christmas Eve is 33, set in 1989. And keep in mind, in 1989, we had 8 inches of snow on the ground. There's no snow this time. So give you a general idea just how potent this air mass is. So again, this is some pretty, this is pretty serious cold.
We all want white Christmas, or at least a lot of us do.
Yeah.
But this is almost worse than cold. Okay. Because when we get snow, we know it's going to be cold. That's the price you pay to get snow. We're just getting the cold.
Mm-hmm.
No one wants that.
Yeah, I mean, you got the cold chasing the moisture. The moisture is 12, 18 hours ahead of the cold.
Yeah.
And it's just, you need a coastal storm. Really, in our neck of the woods anyway, you really need a coastal storm in order to get any meaningful accumulation. You need a coastal storm and a wedge. And unfortunately, a wedge often means freezing rain. So, it's hard to win, guys. It's hard to win here.
Cross wedge off my Carolina Weather Group bingo for tonight. There we
Uh-huh.
go.
There it is.
We've retweeted your information about the warming shelters in North Charleston. They'll have some here in Charlotte as well. So depending on where you're watching or listening from, if that is something you need, then I would recommend you get in touch with your city. If they have like a 311 number, you could always call and get that information, as they do here in Charlotte. And check on your neighbors. Check on your neighbors, make sure they're good, especially if the power goes out. You never know who might be relying on electric heat. We're going to talk about heat safety. We're going to talk about cell phone safety. But first, we have to go to Columbia. Last but not least, Frank Strait. Frank, during the summer, Columbia is a hot spot because of its terrain. Do you guys get any sort of like positive upswing because of that now in the winter, where you get like an extra degree?
Well, sometimes, yes. If the sun's out during the day, yeah, maybe. But the problem is, here in the Midlands of South Carolina, our soils are sandy like they are at the coast. There's a reason they call this area the Sand Hills. And that extends, of course, toward Augusta, Georgia, and northeast into parts of North Carolina, too. But because we have these sandy soils here, especially the outlying areas, not so much in town, but especially the outlying areas, it gets cold pretty easily at night, especially when it's a clear and calm night. You'll notice it seems to get pretty cold at the Columbia Airport because it's in one of those outlying areas. For example, we were down to 24 a couple nights ago. So when we get these clear, calm nights, it does get really cold in those outlying areas. Sometimes just as cold as you might get in the upstate or even up in the North Carolina sometimes. So we do get the cold at night under the right conditions. But on the other hand, those sandy soils don't hold moisture very well. So when the sun's out on a relatively warm day, then yeah, it gets a little bit warmer here than everybody else.
So anything, Frank, for your neck of the woods that differs greatly from anything we've touched on so far, which of course at this point means chance of rain on Thursday, potentially heavy at times, and then wicked cold Friday and Saturday?
Not a whole lot. The upstate gets the worst of the cold, and that's been discussed. We don't have any of these coastal issues like flooding here. Although it's worth mentioning that there will potentially be some minor flooding up into Scotty's neck of the woods there along the Grand Strand. So that's something to think about, a potential minor flood issue. And of course, if you get a downpour when the tide is high, even up in the Myrtle Beach area, you can exacerbate the coastal flooding issues there. So that's something to think about. But that area is not as vulnerable as Charleston. Charleston's the most vulnerable area we have in the state to coastal flooding. So that's going to be the main area of concern, especially, as Jared said, is if we get a pretty good downpour that lasts a half hour or so from a thunderstorm right at high tide. That's when things can get really bad down there in Charleston.
Speaking of rain, Frank, take a look at this real fast. This is the WeatherStem camera in Greenville, South Carolina. It's north of the metro area, kind of up on the upslope. You can actually see the city lights at the bottom of the screen, and I think it is just right there in the clouds tonight, and you can actually see the rain hitting the camera lens.
Right.
So I just thought that was, you were talking about getting the rain at the right time and the reduced visibilities to come with it. This popped up on the monitor, and I thought,
right,
there's your visual.
Right, and it's really a horrible night to be out. I was actually out a little while ago trying to rescue some cats with a friend of mine that you might be hearing or seeing more of
That
in the
sounds like a
future.
Patreon extra bonus explanation.
Maybe, maybe. Except I buy dinners for this particular friend every now and then. But um, the thing that's going on up in Greenville, it's like that almost all over South Carolina right now. It's pouring. It seems like it's pouring rain. It's a kind of a mist, a thick mist out there right now. And Columbia is the same deal. It's 40 in Greenville right now with that happening. It's 40 here in Columbia as well. And it's just like that here. Up in Rock Hill, it's similar. Over toward the beach, it's kind of similar too. So you get the idea that that it's kind of wet out there and everywhere. I mean, it's just a lousy night to have to be out and driving, and things don't really get any better for the next couple of days. We're dealing with some more rain tomorrow, and as you mentioned, along the coast, some thunderstorms. I guess it wouldn't shock me if the severe weather threat extended as far south and west as Myrtle Beach, but that's probably about as far as it could go, and that's not the area outlook by SPC, but you're kind of close, and it looks like it gets fairly unstable there for a time tomorrow as the warm front's lifting northward. But once you get through that, then we got our eyes on the cold front coming in from the west on Friday, and just like it's happening out west when the cold front moves through. I mean, the weather's just turning around on a dime. You were talking about how suddenly it turned around in Cheyenne and Denver, kind of off before we started recording here, and that it may not be quite as extreme. Like for example, Denver going from 42 to 18 in 7 minutes. So it won't quite do that, but it might drop 15 to 20 degrees in an hour as the front moves through across all of South Carolina, North Carolina, the same deal too. And then temperatures just drop during the day. It looks as though the front gets through the upstate during the pre-dawn hours and into the morning around the Midlands here, and then along the coastal areas, it's early afternoon, midday, early afternoon hours. But you do have to keep that in mind if the front doesn't get to you first thing in the morning on Friday, and if you have plans to go out. You don't, if it's 55, 58 degrees along the coast and first thing in the morning, and you go out and you're out most of the day, by the time you get home it could be 35, so you don't want to go out wearing short pants and short sleeves.
Exactly. That would be awful.
Dress for the weather that's coming.
Exactly.
Not the weather you have.
What's coming at you rather than what's happening right now in these situations. And we talked about the wind too. It looks like the wind's just going to scream as the front's moving through. It looks like the strongest winds are along and just behind the front for an hour or so. I think that's when you have the potential to get those 50-mile-an-hour winds. It's like just suddenly blasts you. You get this blast of cold come at you, and the winds die down, a little bit once the front's an hour after the front's an hour past you, but it's still blowing. It'll still be gusting to maybe 35 or 40 miles an hour. So those wind chills are going to be rough. Friday afternoon and evening around, both Carolinas really, but you'll definitely feel here in South Carolina. We talked about pipe concerns that's going to be a problem all across the state, especially in some of these areas along the coastal plain and here in the Midlands, Central Savannah River area, where folks just don't have to deal with the cold that often, so you just don't really think about it all that often. But when it's down to 15 degrees Saturday morning, you'll be thinking about it then if you haven't by that point, because your pipes will freeze. So, I mean, right, you can do something about it now. You can insulate those pipes. You can, kind of shore up the underpinning of your trailer or whatever to help provide whatever cover you can. Wrap those pipes if you live along those coastal areas and your house is on stilts. And then, of course, leave the faucet dripping. You'll have to do that for like 3 days, I think, because it's going to get cold and stay cold. But
you know what? And as I'm listening, I think in summary, we're all in this together because no matter where you are in the Carolinas, Friday and Saturday is going to be brutal. It's
Absolutely
not just isolated. Yes, it's going to be worse in the mountains than the coast, but I think we're all going to. If you're like me and you have to leave work on Friday because you still have to go to work on Christmas Eve, as Jared said, dress for the weather. That's to come.
Right.
Before we go,
since you brought that up, James, let's raise a glass to our National Weather Service meteorologists, emergency managers, police,
Absolutely.
and so forth will be working on the holiday for us and keeping an eye out for us. Let's give them a pat on the back
Amen.
here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As we all get to, so many of us hopefully have a chance to enjoy the holiday. Others will be continuing to serve us in their various roles. One of those folks is Duke Energy, who sent out a reminder to everyone earlier today about the things that they will be doing in their not only centralized logistics, but also the men and women who are out on the streets in the cold. So they're asking us to remind you some of the things that you can do to help keep your power on and to help them help you create an emergency supply kit. You may need that for heating. You may need that for food. You may need that if your electricity goes out. Portable radio or TV, NOAA weather radio, to get those analog updates anytime, especially if the cellular network or something were to go down. Charge those cell phones, computers, and other electronics devices now. We'll get over to Scotty Powell in a moment for more tips on electronics. After the storm, stay away from any power lines that may have fallen. Be sure to promptly report those as quickly as you can. If a power line falls across a car that you are in, stay in that car because that will help protect you from the electricity. We're hoping that most of you will just be bundled up at home. You can reach Duke Energy to report outages at the number there, 1-800-343-3525. Or duke-energy.com. If you're operating a generator, always operate a generator in a safe place. That means away from flammables, other things that may catch fire. Don't leave it unsupervised, and make sure that you have fresh air. Want to avoid any sort of carbon monoxide poisoning situation by running that generator outside where we'll get some fresh air and then running that cord back inside to you. Scotty Powell, they talked about keeping your cell phone charged because not only will that help keep you informed, maybe keep you and your kids entertained and sane, but also the cold air is going to zap that battery like you've never seen it zapped before. So some tips today, I think, from AT&T that you have for us. Oh, I got to unmute him. Did I mute him? Yes, I did. That was on me, not him.
I didn't do it this time. I'm glad it wasn't me. Yeah, I was scrolling through emails and this email popped up about keeping your cell phone up and going during the cold weather. And I don't know if you've ever noticed it, but being up in the mountains, before I moved here to the beach, if you're out in the snow or whatever, you want to take video, you may notice your battery gets zapped pretty quickly from the cold air. And so here's a few tips on how to keep that battery up and charged. I know with it being Christmas weekend and probably a lot of families outside playing on new bicycles or trampolines and wanted to take videos and pictures, this is a great reminder that you want to limit the direct exposure. Cold temperatures can drain your battery, and your touch screen make your touch screen not responsive. So, if you can, it's best to shut down the battery or the phone as you head outside, so you can keep that battery up. Turn your phone off when coming out from the cold, because that condensation can get into your screen and make it do some funky things, and you don't want that. If you are
that was funky.
Outside,
the word he said was funky, for the record.
Yeah, funky. Thank you. I just
like Uptown Funk. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Funky.
The other one still works if you think about it. But
that's true.
Take a second listen.
Use AirPods and a headset that keeps your phone in your pocket, keeps it warm, and then just turn it on battery saving mode. That'll also help conserve your battery if you're out and about this weekend. So be mindful of those. Those are some good tips to have. You don't want to see your kid on a bicycle and then you go to record a video and the battery runs out. So that's a good thing. And just got a few reports here, James, that a little wintry mix going on along Interstate 40 right now with some sleet and snow mixed in with some rain. So they're in North Carolina. So yeah, keep an eye on that as winter weather advisories are posted up in that area. So
one little follow-up to that, Scotty, where you were talking about how the cold drains your batteries. One of the things that you have to think about if you own an electric car, the same things apply. I see a fair number of Teslas and Nissan Leafs and the like going around the Midlands of South Carolina here. Keep in mind that if you're planning a long trip and you think you have a 200-mile range with your battery, that you take it out with temperatures in the 20s, you're not going to get that kind of range. You're going to lose maybe 30 or 40 miles off of that range because your battery's cold and doesn't provide as much power when it's cold.
That's true. Also, tire pressures this weekend. You'll definitely see some low tires.
Yep, that tire indicator light will be coming on for a lot of people.
If your car battery is weak, you'll figure that out this weekend as well. So,
another thing to get checked. Oh, and I've been mentioning this in my weather alerts that I put out for DNR. Your antifreeze, it's cold enough that could be a concern too. If you have a newer car, no worries, because it comes out of the factory good to something like 25, 30 below. So you're good if you have a newer car and there's no leak or anything. But if you have an older car, it's 5 or 6 years old, you never had to mess with the cooling system, or if it's leaky and you've just added water, it's not going to be good down to 30 below. So you may want to get that checked.
They make a below freezing variant, I believe, right? That they use in the northern states.
That's for washer fluid we're talking about.
That's for washer fluid. Okay.
Yeah, which is another thing to think about. I mean, if you're traveling, you're used to using washer fluid, that stuff will freeze in the tank if you have the regular stuff. It's only good down to freezing.
You don't want me to fix your car, clearly.
But obviously, the greater concern for your antifreeze is that if you're
Christmas music just totally drowned out Frank.
Yeah, your radiator could crack. Your engine block could crack if the coolant freezes in there. You don't want that to happen. So you'll want to make sure that that your cooling system's in good shape there.
I got a little good news, though. I don't know if you guys have gandered at the long-term forecast.
A little bit. Looks like it's going to warm up later next week.
If you have, anyway. Here in Myrtle Beach, forecast of 35 degrees on Christmas Eve. Fast forward to New Year's Eve in 7 days, and we're looking at 68.
It's like it'll be a whole new year.
That's right. So don't worry. There's warm air coming back.
I have one important thing to do before that. I'm going to the Gator Bowl and watch my Gamecocks beat up on Notre Dame, I hope.
Oh. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I don't think we got to this question. How cold do we think Mount Mitchell's going to get?
Really?
Evan Fisher is running a poll on Twitter. You can go answer that.
Wow. Well, that's a good question. What the over/under is on the lowest temperature at Mount Mitchell?
Do they make numbers that low?
Mount LeConte.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the peek at the model here actually. Just see.
I want to say -10.
I'm going to go with 12
cold
below.
enough.
I've not looked 12 below. Okay, I'm going 10 below.
Luke, I hope we weren't expecting an actual answer.
Yeah. Actually, Evan's poll is just for somewhere in the southern Appalachians, the coldest temperature reported, so not necessarily Mount Mitchell. But
okay.
Typically, the only place that gets just as cold as or colder than Mitchell would be Mount LeConte, Tennessee.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at the high res, and there's spots around Banner Elk and Spruce Pine that are going to get well into the negatives. Dillingham, North Carolina, near there have some output that's showing -18. Nope.
That's a hard no for me.
No, I don't even think Evan would go out in that.
Oh yeah, he would totally.
Yeah, you're right.
He'd totally go out. And it would be blowing 100 miles an hour, 20 below zero. He's there.
The ice beard. I mean,
it could be the last we see of him. He could find him frozen out.
Literally frozen in place.
Or some local resident shoots him because they think he's Sasquatch.
Or does the T-1000 thing. He shatters and then he melts and then reforms. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Freeze?
Yeah, kind of. I always think T-1000.
I have a question for y'all. What are you going to do to stay warm this weekend?
I'm so glad you asked. Nothing. I'm going to stay home and just cozy up with the family. Little staycation Christmas. We love trains. There's going to be plenty of that. And my wife loves baking. And she makes a killer, ready for this, guys? Peppermint mocha cookie.
So cookies and train
I'll go
watching
get one while you guys talk so I can eat it in front of you.
Oh.
How nice.
As for
Frank,
me,
what
I'm going
about
to
you?
Polk County to visit mom and dad, so I'll be up there where it's going to be unpleasantly cold. I mean, it's not that it's going to be nice in Columbia with it down to 15 on the Saturday morning, but it'll be more like 5 at my parents' house.
Jared?
And the high
Yeah.
might be 22 or something like that.
He doesn't want to be picked up, but
Oh,
I've got
Charlie
my-
Brown's.
Yeah, I've
being
got my
camera
heating
shy.
pad. Yeah, I'm gonna need to clone him about 3 times.
Hmm.
Oh yeah,
We got 4 of these.
nice.
Oh, one
It's,
for each of us.
Just
I'll be
enough,
right up.
Just enough for me. It's a chocolate cookie. It's like a double chocolate chip cookie dipped in like a vanilla icing with little chunks
Ah.
of peppermint on.
Looks pretty
candy.
tasty.
Tastes like
Frank, your son, I understand, gets to drive real locomotives. So I think I need
Yes,
to,
he does.
I need to
He sure does. I actually saw him.
real
He was,
fan chase him one day.
yeah, he was being a real jerk in Columbia a couple days ago. He was driving his train across Assembly Street in the middle of the afternoon, holding everybody up. I have video
Wow.
of it.
That was him, huh? That was him.
People in here around Columbia do not like it very much when the train's going across the Assembly Street.
Yeah, I think I've seen
there's
his
any kind
picture.
of traffic.
Wanted it
Fortunately,
down.
it wasn't rush hour, but still.
Well,
I hope
Rush
you
hour
don't
is what you
choke
do
on
on your
those.
last day.
Don't choke on those, James. It's not
Nope.
fair to eat in front of us.
oh, sorry. well, let me close this out then. So then I can eat them all. That does it for this live special edition of the Carolina Weather Group. Please do stay safe, stay warm.
And don't
We had
talk with food
lovely-
in your mouth.
Too late. Too late.
I've just
What?
forgot. This concludes year 8 of Carolina Weather Group.
8, huh?
Yeah. 2014.
Wow. Did I have hair when this started? No. I don't think I did.
I don't remember.
It's because I
It's
wasn't
been a
here
long
either.
time, boys.
It's been a minute.
Mhm.
Wow.
Started
I've
on
only
Google
been-
Hangouts.
I've only
Do
been
you
a
remember Google
panelist
Hangouts,
3
Google
of
Plus.
those years, but
Google. I remember Google. Yeah.
Google
Yeah.
Plus.
Think
Hangouts on
wouldn't
air.
work half the time. Half the time.
Didn't let us
Blast
play
from the
Christmas
past.
music like this.
No.
Well,
Oh,
whether you're a long-term 8-year viewer or you're new to the Carolina Weather Group, we appreciate wherever you watch or listen to us from. And we hope you'll be back for year 9, which I have on good word is going to start off with a great, lovely conversation. Scotty's eyes are bugging out. I said, Scotty, you were there. Well, with conversation with the Weather Channel's Jim Cantori.
Starting out with a
we'll-
bang.
Starting out
Teaser.
with a bang. And I think we'll be back in 2 or 3 weeks with that to start off 2023. So be sure to like and subscribe to be notified when that episode becomes available. It will become available to Patreon supporters at patreon.com/Carolina Weather Group before Christmas. So if you want to get a jump start on it and watch or listen to it this year, that's how you can do that.
There is a little breaking news in that show too.
There is a little
Oh, yeah,
something
there is. That's right.
spicy that you got to hear to believe. And that is what we call a tease.
Nothing
And
lasts
otherwise,
forever.
we hope you have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Festivus, and all the other holidays that are out there. I always like to throw Festivus.
Toyotathon. Honda
I'm
Day.
gonna have problems with you people.
Mm. And we'll see you in the new year
We'll see you next
or
year.
sooner if the weather warrants. You guys remember last January?
5 events in a
So
row,
much.
baby.
No.
After
so
another,
much.
after another.
No.
Yeah, if
Gotta
you're
love that
hearing from us
positive DNA.
tomorrow, it's probably not so good. So I hope you don't have to hear from us again until January.
True.
No news. No news is good news.
That's right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.